So back in Construct 2, what we want to do is add some animations first to our monsters so that they sort of react when we shoot them. They don't just keep plowing forward. When we shoot them, we want it to actually have an effect. That's what makes it satisfying. So we're going to start with our event sheet. And what we want to do is when the bullet collides with the monster, the first thing we'd like it to do is maybe have it move back a few pixels in order to give it the effect that we're pushing it back with the force of our bullets. So if I add an action here, just click the add action button there, and on the monster I want to move it at an angle. And the angle that we're going to use, if you think about when you're shooting something, it's going to move back in the exact direction that your projectile is moving forward. So we're going to give it the angle of the bullet, and we're going to move it back 40 pixels. So if we move it 40 pixels in the angle of the bullet, it'll move backwards from where the bullet hit it 40 pixels in the same direction that the bullet was moving. So I'll click done here, and a quick play. Hopefully this will work out in our favor. We can see that the monsters are now moving back from my bullets as I shoot them. Alright. So that's pretty cool. But we also want to add some sort of an animation that lets us know we're doing some damage to the monster. And what I like to do is give it like maybe a red glow so that when I hit the monster glows red for a second. And to do that, I'm going to put some effects on the monsters. And to do that, I'm going to switch to our layout view so I can actually look at the monster itself. I'm going to click on the monster here, and I'll just double click that and open it up. Actually, I'm going to just single click on the monster once, and I'm going to edit the effects. So I'm going to leave everything the same except for I'm going to add an effect here, and I'm going to add one called tint. So I'll go ahead and add that, and I'll close it down. Now the tint effect is a little tricky, so we're going to have to work with it a bit. Now on most of your projects, your monsters are already going to be red, and that's because I think in this version by default, tint will set the red tint to 100 and everything else to 0. And we don't want it to be quite that way, but we do want a lot of red tint. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably turn up the green and the blue so we don't have quite so much red, and I might even turn those both to 50, maybe not quite 50. Let's try 30. 30 is probably pretty good, so we'll do 30 on both of those. Let's make sure maybe 25. And you can see every time I make these adjustments, I can see the effects right here on the monster. And any time that I want, I can click on the monster and or zoom in on the monster and see the effects. So if I go in really tight, that kind of looks like it'd be a cool glowy tint. And let's click back on the monster here. So I added the tint effect, and I have 100 on the red and 25 on the green and blue. So if I click play here, there's a big problem, and that is the fact that the monsters just show up red by default. And that's not cool. So we have to do a couple of things in order to make this work the way that we want it to. What we want to do is we want to stop or start the game off with the monsters back at their normal green with no tint. So first thing I'm going to do is add a new system event, and this should actually be here anyway. In most games that you're going to build, you're going to want an on start of the layout, because a lot of stuff happens right at the start of the layout that you're really going to want. So the one thing I'm going to want is I'm going to set the monster, and if you click set effect enabled and then you just set the mode to disabled. It will disable the tint effect for us when we start the layout. So if I play this again, you can see my monsters are back to green in their normal state. But the other thing that I want to do is on collision with the monster, I'd like to add the action of setting the effect to enabled, so that when I play and I shoot the monster, it turns it red. The problem is I only want to have it flash red for a couple of seconds. I don't want it to stay red forever after that. So the next thing I have to do is I have to add what's called a wait. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a wait, and that's under system, and we'll say wait. And I'm going to set it for, let's go with 0.3 seconds. And then I'm going to disable the tint. That way when I hit the monster, it's going to flash the red for a minute or for 0.3 seconds and then disable it. So let's go ahead and play our layout again. And you can see that the monsters are now turning red and moving away from me as I shoot them. The other thing is, when I shoot the monsters, I also kind of want them to get a little mad at me and turn towards me and attack me when I shoot them, because that's another thing that I really think would be cool. So I'm going to say monster. I'm going to add a new action. Let's go back a second because I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to add an action, and I'm going to tell the monster, and I want to set angle toward position, player. So my player's X and my player's Y. So now if I play again, which is cool, let's try that again. So even if they're not headed towards me in the beginning, they will fairly soon. So when I shoot him, he's going to turn towards me and start attacking. And that guy turns towards me. So now we have a little bit more of an exciting game to play. So if you follow these steps and you start to play your game, I can promise you shooting those monsters is going to be a ton more satisfying. And I can always also promise you we're not even done with the half of it yet. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to show you a couple of things that are going to add some real fun and intensity to your game.